Go ahead and call the meeting of the Schaumburg Village Board to order for Tuesday, November 12th, 2019. Thank you very much for being present. We are video streaming this on YouTube. I do ask you to turn your cell phones off, if you wouldn't mind, please, so we can have no distractions. First item is roll call, please.
Trustee Bishke?
Present.
Trustee Madej?
Present.
Trustee Dunham?
Present.
Trustee Sullivan?
Present.
Trustee Conley?
Present.
Trustee Kozak?
Here.
President Daly?
Present. All present and accounted for. I'm going to ask Trustee Mark Madej, his birthday, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Audience, please rise.
Thank you, Trustee Madej. Next item is the approval of minutes. We have October 22nd, 2019 and October 22nd, 2019 executive session. Any questions, comments?
Motion to approve. Second.
So a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the approval of expenditures. You have a list of expenditures totaling $8,151,000, $607.73. Any questions, comments?
Move to approve the expenditures as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the expenditures as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Bishke?
Aye.
Trustee Madej?
Aye.
Trustee Dunham?
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan?
Aye.
Trustee Conley?
Aye.
Trustee Kozak?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Liquor license requests. We have a request from Hamishu Patel for a one-day Class B liquor license. My apologies if I messed up your name there. This is for Weathers Way Liquors, located at 656 South Roselle Road. New owner. How are you? So, please tell us, is it just a change of ownership or any other changes or things that you have planned for there?
Just ownership going change, and I have planned to back the business in a market right now. So business, I have opportunity to back to business.
Okay. So you're not closing it or reopening it, you're just changing an ownership?
Yeah, just change the ownership.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? No? Okay. Tomorrow you can approach the Liquor Commissioner's office upstairs and fill out the necessary paperwork, background check that's done, and assuming you pass all that, a license will be issued.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have a request from Min Kim for one Class F liquor license from Moga Sushi, located at 1098 South Roselle Road. It's a new license. Please come forward. Hi, how are you?
Good.
So is this an establishment already in existence?
Sorry.
Is it an existing business?
Yeah.
Okay. What's it called now? The same name?
M Sushi Burrito?
Oh, okay. All right, and you're just changing ownership?
No, it's the same ownership.
Same ownership. Okay, so why are we a new license?
We didn't have a liquor license. So
Oh, okay.
yes, it's
Okay, so you're adding a liquor license to it. Okay. All right, questions, comments from the board? No? All right, same comments. Tomorrow you can approach the Liquor Commissioner's office, fill out all the necessary paperwork, and pass a background check, and a liquor license will be issued. Okay?
okay.
Thank you. No other liquor license requests. We have consent agenda. Consent agenda will be read in its entirety, voted on as one motion to approve. If you wish to discuss any items further, please indicate that, pull that item off when it's read by the village clerk so that it can be removed from the consent agenda and discussed further under committee reports. Otherwise, all items will be approved as presented on the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda? Thank you.
Number 1, correspondence. The motion will be to ratify the request from Wings Program, Inc. to hold a raffle on November 7th, 2019 at Mizzi Mediterraneo, 680 Mall Drive, and to grant a variance to Code Section 117.31. 2, liquor licenses. The motion would be to approve the request from Mrs. Janice Kinnell Ropp of Ministry of Christ Community Mennonite Church for one Class D one-day liquor license for the Gifts of the World event on Friday, November 22nd, 2019, from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. at 888 South Roselle Road. 3, proclamations. American Indian Heritage Month, November 2019. 4, Engineering and Public Works Committee. A, the motion would be to approve participation in the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance and award a contract for the Fire Station 52 epoxy floor replacement to FH Passion of Chicago, Illinois, and approve issuance of a purchase order in the total amount of $58,865.24. B, the motion would be to approve participation in the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance and award a contract for the Schaumburg Airport masonry improvement to FH Passion of Chicago, Illinois, and approve issuance of a purchase order in the amount of $54,921.92. 5, finance, legal, administrative, and general government. A, the motion would be to approve the Finance Department monthly report for August 2019. B, the motion would be to accept the Finance Department organizational and management study report. C, the motion would be to approve a 5% reduction in the property tax levy and establish the levy amount at $19,479,582. D, the motion would be to adopt an ordinance abating taxes levied for the year 2019, heretofore levied to pay principal and interest on general obligation bonds, Series 2010A, 2011, 2012, 2012A, 2013A, 2016, and 2017. E, the motion would be to recommend the village board approve the annual stipend list for 2018-2019. F, the motion would be to approve a resolution authorizing the renewal of a Class B tax incentive for 851 East State Parkway, Schaumburg, Illinois, Brooklyn Imports Incorporated. 6, Health and Human Resources Committee. The motion would be to adopt an ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 95, Section 95.32 of the Municipal Code to allow for delivery of food service inspection reports by email and first-class mail. B, the motion would be to refer the CBDG 2018 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, to the Plan Commission for review and comment at a public hearing. 7, transportation. The motion would be to amend ordinance Title 7, Chapter 74, Section 11, Section 9, turns prohibited relative to Meacham Road at Zurich Way and Meacham Road at Progress Parkway. B, the motion would be to recommend a resolution authorizing the village president and village clerk to execute a easement agreement with Tough Property Partners, LLC of Chicago, Illinois, for a multi-use path easement along Algonquin Road. 8, Planning, Building, and Development Committee. The motion would be to approve a contract with Chastain and Associates, LLC of Schaumburg, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $134,420 for engineering consulting services for the community development engineer position through January 31st, 2020, and TIF project management and coordination of the Meacham and Algonquin intersection improvements through April 30th, 2020, and approve the required resolution. 9, Plan Commission. The motion would be to approve a final plat approval located at 2008 Progress Parkway. B, the motion would be to approve a fence variation located at 1601 Portsmouth Lane. 10, Old Schaumburg Center Commission. The motion will be to approve an architectural approval for a rooftop solar energy system for 128 Sumac Lane, Sarah's Grove, PUD, Natal Residence. 11, resolutions. The motion would be to adopt as resolution R19-074, approving and authorizing the renewal of a 6B classification for 851 East State Parkway, Schaumburg, Illinois. B, the motion would be to adopt as resolution R19-075, authorizing the village manager to execute a professional services agreement with Chastain and Associates, LLC, to provide interim staffing for the position of Community Development Engineer. C, the motion would be to adopt as resolution 19-076, authorizing the village president and village clerk to execute an easement agreement by and between the Village of Schaumburg and Tough Partners, LLC, for a multi-use path easement along Algonquin Road. 12, ordinances. The motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 19-089, granting an architectural approval for a rooftop solar energy system for 128 Sumac Lane, Sarah's Grove, PUD, Natal Residence. B, the motion...
Let me interrupt you here a minute.
Yes.
Ask a question. My understanding is there was potential for this item to be pulled. It was not pulled. Who's the petitioner? This is for 1601 Plymouth, Portsmouth Lane with the fence.
This lady right here.
Are you looking to discuss this item?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we needed to pull that item? Okay, as I explained in the beginning, the process is if we're going to pass this unless it gets pulled. So you want to discuss it further?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'm going to
So
pull
we're
that
going to
one.
pull under Plan Commission B.
Yes,
Okay, we're going to pull that one, and then we're going to pull the
And pull the
resolution
ordinance.
B. Or the
Yes.
ordinance B.
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, then
We'll
C.
come back and have conversation.
The motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 19-090, abating taxes levied for the year 2019 heretofore levied to pay principal and interest on general obligation bonds, Series 2010A, Series 2011, Series 2012, Series 2012A, Series 2013A, Series 2016, Series 2017 of the Village of Schaumburg. D, the motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 19-091, amending Title 9, Chapter 95, Section 95.32 of the Schaumburg Village Code relative to service inspection of notices. E, the motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 19-092, amending Title 3, various sections of the fee schedule, vending machine license fees. F, the motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 19-093, amending Title 7, Chapter 74, Section 11, Schedule 9, turns prohibited, relative to Meacham Road at Zurich Way and Meacham Road at Progress Way. This concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. So I look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with item B under Plan Commission, removed for further discussion, along with its corresponding ordinance under ordinances.
B.
It's 12B.
12B. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Vishki?
Aye.
Trustee Madej?
Aye.
Trustee Dunham?
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan?
Aye.
Trustee Conley?
Aye.
Trustee Kozak?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Committee reports. The item we have before us is for 1601 Portsmouth Lane, granting a fence variation. So why don't you give us some background first before, to give us, up to speed as to where we're at with it, and then we'll let the petitioner talk.
All right.
Okay.
David Utley, I am the Vice Chair and Acting Chair of the Plan Commission. The petitioner had requested a fence variation for a fence that has already been constructed. Her contractor applied for a permit. It was not approved. However, he went ahead and constructed the fence anyway. There are several issues with this fence that do not meet the village code. It is at the intersection of Springingskuth and Portsmouth. Springingskuth is, I was told, is a very busy road. And so the petitioner would be allowed a 6-foot fence. What the petitioner did, though, was have the 6-foot fence extend beyond the side setback yard up to the side of the sidewalk practically. In addition, the 2 front sections of the fence which face north also are solid fence. The staff had recommended approval of the fence along Springingskuth, which is a 6-foot solid fence, since Springingskuth is a busy road, but put the condition that it should be brought into compliance with the code upon sale. The 2 issues that were also there are the 2 pieces of fence, one on the east and one on the west side of on the north side of the property south of Portsmouth, which are solid fences. And the staff believe that they should be brought in compliance with the code, which provides for 5 feet as well as a 30% open on the fence. So the Plan Commission heard the petitioner, had a number of comments and questions for the petitioner, ultimately agreed with staff that the existing fence along Springingskuth could be left until such time as the property is sold, but the 2 small sections along the north side of the property would have to be brought into compliance with the code. And there were some diagrams, if you saw, that were provided for you. So that's where we're at. On a personal note, I see no reason that the fence should be taken down if approved, since it is in line with all of the other fences that are north of Portsmouth along Springingskuth, but that's my personal thought, not the Plan Commission's thought.
Just quick point of clarification. So, and I meant to ask this earlier, so my apologies. So the 6-foot solid fence runs, with the drawings we have, so we do have some in color here, show that the 6-foot tall fence runs from the house over to Springingskuth, then down Springingskuth, and then back along the back property line. So is the suggestion to keep that whole 6-foot that exists?
That is
Because the rest
correct.
of it is 5 feet. So leave that, not just the Springingskuth portion, but the rest of the 6-foot.
That's correct, because
Yeah.
that backs up to a church property, which staff felt was consistent
Okay.
with
I
parks,
just want to
schools,
make
and
sure
things
we were
like that.
talking those pieces too, besides the
Would be
Springingskuth.
left. It's
Yes.
the 2
Okay.
north side that would need to be brought into
That's fine.
compliance.
Okay. So why don't you give us, yeah, hold on a second.
So just to clarify that, the section between the house and Springingskuth is 6-foot solid, and the recommendation from staff is to reduce that to a 5-foot open. So that would not stay 6-foot solid.
Which section?
Only the section along Springingskuth and then along the south property line would stay solid 6-foot.
That's correct.
The
It's-
section along Portsmouth would be reduced to 5-foot and
Open.
30% open.
That's correct.
Okay, that's, I guess, what I was driving at, so I didn't apparently explain myself properly, but, so that's what I was interested in, so, okay.
Question.
Yes, trustee Dunham.
So are you saying that it would, no changes would be made now, and changes would need to be made upon sale?
No, changes that need to be made now are along the north side
All right,
of the property.
and that will be done?
And that should be done if the board approves what we approved as the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Trustee Madej?
So this is a wood fence, or,
It is my recollection is it's a wood
Yeah.
fence.
It
okay,
is.
so all they need to do is basically remove every third plank, right?
Well, on the north section of the property, that's a 6-foot fence there. So that has to be brought into compliance also with the 5 feet.
Trustee Bishki.
So, the one question that I had, when you said that they had, the contractor had applied for a permit and it was rejected, but it's my understanding that the resident applied for the permit and it was rejected, not the contractor, is that correct?
I believe the contractor applied for the permit.
So,
Do we know that?
Julie?
that's-
could you step forward and give clarification on that, please?
Yeah, I have a copy of the permit. It's my understanding, our records show that the homeowner was in fact the applicant and did sign the permit, and the homeowner is here, and she could confirm that, but she was listed as the applicant with her contact information. And so that's who was contacted in the fall of 2018 when the permit was denied.
Okay.
Testimony that was
That was
presented
my
at the
question.
Plan
Okay.
Commission
Let me-
was that the petitioner, or that the contractor had sought that.
Okay. Trustee Kozak?
Bottom line is, the contractor knows what the rules of the village are. He went ahead and did the work knowing that he didn't have the valid permit. So the contractor should be liable for the work, not the petitioner. She shouldn't be liable for any of this work. He should be liable for going ahead and doing the work out of context and not being within the village codes. So I don't think she should be liable for any of this to be brought into compliance.
Well, that's, and while we may agree or disagree on that, the question is whether or not to proceed with what staff is recommending or what the petitioner would like. And so before we hear the petitioner, Trustee Conley, did you have questions?
May I
Okay.
address Mr. Kozak's?
Sure, go ahead.
It was suggested at the hearing that the contractor was being brought into adjudicate whatever hearing it was, and the suggestion was that the contractor be made liable for restoring this. I don't know if that's happened.
And he has not replied to adjudication, from what I understand, correct?
There's been 2 citations issued to the contractor. They did contact the building official after the first one. They have not appeared at adjudication or talked to legal counsel, but they did speak with the building official via phone, indicated that they were going to make the necessary corrections, but they have not done that. They are no longer responsive to us. Second citation was issued, and there are judgments against the contractor. So we will be holding their license, and they'll have to pay those if they want to do additional work in the village.
Thank you.
Yes, Trustee
I
Conley.
know there was discussion in the zoning board, in the Plans Commission hearing minutes, and I think what you were saying, Strutley, was that provision that says that the 6-foot fence that we normally would allow along Spring and Scoot is gonna have to be moved in or reduced at the time of the sale of the property. And I would have to agree with your comment and some of the other Plan Commission. I don't know that I would not have agreed to this variance to put it along here, since everything west of there, everything north of there, which happens to be backyards instead of side yards, are right along the fence.
Right along the sidewalk.
Right along the sidewalk, so you have, as you turn that corner, this property didn't have a fence, but, most of them do. Now, they're not all solid fences, a few of those folks have
Chain link
chain
fences
link
there.
with high bushes and things like that, but it really is a thing. So I would be for also granting the variance, just to say that they can have the 6-foot fence on the east side, and that it not be a stipulation that it would have to be removed at the time of sale. And is that what you were also trying
That
to
was
say?
my personal opinion. That was
Yeah.
not the opinion of the plan.
That was not the unanimous opinion
No.
of the Plan Commission.
Trustee Dunham?
This is probably the 3rd or 4th time that we've heard something like this in the last few years. And I, for one, am getting tired of it. We either have ordinances or we don't. Yes, there is a process by which someone can appeal and so forth, but the ordinances are pretty reasonable. And most of the contractors around are able to follow those ordinances. And it almost sounds to me like, well, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. And again, I'm getting tired of hearing it. You folks on the Plan Commission work very hard to make sure that the ordinances, the spirit of the ordinances, the letter of the ordinances are generally followed. And now here again, we're being asked to grant a variance. And I imagine that to some extent, the petitioner is thinking, well, it's already there, so, let me go ahead with it. And I want to be on the record as saying, if we're going to have these rules and regulations, let's stick to them. If we don't, then if we're not going to stick to them, then perhaps they should be revised.
Okay, shall we hear from the petitioner? Okay, so why don't you give us your name and address for the record? Obviously, you're the owner, but for the record, please give us your name and address.
My name's Eliza Sarkis at 1601 Portsmouth Lane in Schaumburg here.
Okay.
I've been in that property over 20 years, and there was no fence before. I had bushes, and the bushes started to wither out and falling apart. If you can see the property sitting in a corner, two main busy, almost like highways, main streets. And in front of it and back of it, it's open to the public. Church is on one side, and then the mobile gas station on the other side. So I'm not sitting in a private area. It's completely open. I've had a lot of strangers walking right through from the street onto the backyard crossing. I had no privacy at all. The reason I needed that 6 foot from the side, Portsmouth, from Spring-In's-Good to Portsmouth, the bedroom, there are two windows, bedroom windows sitting right in that area. So I really did needed that privacy also in there. A lot of homes, if you check and see on Spring-In's-Good all the way to Bodie, are very similar fences to mine. Also on Schaumburg Road. My property is sitting right in a corner, open on the two main streets, busy main streets. At this point, I'm not able to afford to do any more changes. I can't afford to do any changes to bring it down or put any spaces in between. I'm not able to do that. I can't afford to do that.
So you're asking for this fence to remain exactly as it's been built?
Yes, please.
Okay. So can I ask you, why did you have the contractor go ahead and do the work even though the permit was denied?
I've never worked with any fences or anything like that. He was a businessman experienced with this. He should have explained it to me.
But you applied for the permit, and you were
yes.
told no, and so you were denied the permit, and then you went ahead and had the contractor do the work anyways.
I asked, if you can take care of this. He said, yes, we'll take care of this. And I believed, that everything was okay. I had no idea, it would end up anything like
So
this.
you're saying the contractor led you to believe that this was okay, even though the village had already told you no, it wasn't? So you were believing the contractor, not the village?
No. I thought that he's already went ahead and got the permit through the village. It was taken care of. I thought he already took care of everything.
Yeah, how could he get the,
Okay. Comments from the board?
yes.
Yes.
We'll start with trustee Dunham.
If you applied for the permit and you were told no, then how could you think that he would have applied for the permit and had been told yes? I don't understand.
He, it took a little time, and I told him that, yes, there was, a little problem with that. It was denied at first, and he said, we will go ahead and take care of it ourselves. So I believe that he came here and reapplied for it, and not long after that, they just came in and put the fence up.
Trustee Kozak?
Yeah, I'm listening to you, you're talking about the invasion of privacy, that people were cutting across your yard and everything. Did you bother calling PD? Did you ask for assistance from the police department to patrol your house and that, to eliminate any of this? Did you call the police department and ask for help?
No, not for that reason, no.
Other, Trustee Conley?
Again, I would support what Plan Commission is recommending as far as the variance, to leave the 6 foot on the east side. And if you can't take down the 6 foot solid fence on the north side, then I believe, and replace it with what would meet the code, which is a 5 foot fence with spaces in between, which is what people all down Portsmouth have when I drove by. There's lots of your neighbors going west from you that have wooden fences similar to yours, many of them much older, that have the openings. If you can't afford to take it down and replace it, then I think you just have to take it down. I mean, and you can do that as cheap as getting a saw and cutting them off. Your yard is still going to be highly protected. You've lived there 22 years without anything on the busy part, where it backs against the church or where it's on the other.
Right.
But maybe you have to wait, and then when you can afford to replace the 2 front fences, that's what you have to do. If you have a problem with your contractor, and you say you have financial problems in some of the things you wrote, then I think you need to go to some kind of public aid that gives help with pro bono legal work, and maybe you need to take action against the contractor who got you in this mess. But if you can't take it down and replace it, then I think you have to take it down.
Yes, yeah. Get over there.
Now, going down to Springinsguth
Right.
and Bodie, you're saying they are solid fences
And
like
we're- And we're
mine.
saying you can keep that.
And mine is sitting right in the corner of 2 main busy streets.
And we're not saying you have to take the fence down along Springinsguth. What we're saying is you have to change the fence that's facing Portsmouth. You can leave the Springinsguth fence alone. We're saying that's okay. You went for a variance, we gave you that variance. What we didn't give you a variance on is the 2 pieces of fence. They're, 7 or 8 foot long on the east side, and maybe it's not quite as wide on the west side of your house that faces. Those are the ones we're saying should be only 5 foot and should be open fences, just like everybody else down Portsmouth. Your neighbors that are to the west of you that have those kind of fences have 4 or 5 foot fences with openings in them. And if you can't afford to take that down and put it up with a new fence, and I can understand that would be expensive, then maybe you have to have help and cut them off and leave it open. Then the front has to be open. You still have much more privacy than you've had in the 22 years that you're there, because your privacy issues are really on your south and east areas. Because we don't let anybody else in your neighborhood have solid 6 foot fences in the front of their houses. The other folks down Portsmouth don't have that, and I would not be in favor of letting you have that.
I've
And
seen
then
a-
again, if you need to take legal action against your contractor, there are agencies, law schools, and people like that that give people who can't afford a lawyer help with pro bono work, and maybe that's what you need to do next.
Trustee Kozak?
Yeah, I kind of got to agree with Trustee Dunham. That's why we have ordinances. That's what's kept this village clean for so many years. I sat on Plan Commission for 25 years and fought this stuff for 25 years, and ordinances and builders, and heard the same kind of discussion over and over and over. And David Utley sat on the commission with me many, many years. And I just think it's an issue that we have to keep addressing to keep the village up to standards that we have addressed and put into place to keep the village looking good.
Trustee Bishke?
I agree as well. I agree with staff's recommendations on the both sections of fence on the north property, as well as staff's conditions that upon sale or transfer of the property, that they be brought into compliance. And I also understand that there's an issue with a shed that's non-conforming as well that would also have to be brought into compliance at the time of sale. And I agree with that as well.
That's in sale or replacement, Brian.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, the shed was there when I moved on that property. I did not put that shed there.
Understand.
Okay.
But it is,
So someone else-
it is a
Yes,
non-conforming
someone else
shed.
put
It's-
it there.
Who did that without a permit? That's what
It was-
happened. So
yeah.
someone else did that without a permit. Yeah.
That I can't speak, I don't know.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't have been allowed there, so they did it without a permit. Trustee Sullivan?
It's pretty obvious that the contractor's trying to put some distance between him and this. What's the name of the contractor? What company did this? Because I can't seem to find it anywhere here.
I have it on the application. It's Northwest Fence.
And they haven't responded to anything. They made an initial comment that they would correct the issues.
There was some initial, it was a phone
And then
conversation.
off the face of the earth.
And then there was some emails, but I don't have those in front of me right now.
I just can't believe they leave this lady high and dry to fight in her own battles. I mean, not represent her. That's wrong.
I mean, they probably have the resources to take care of this in like a hurry without any problem.
Well, and again, you know, I mean, staff is somewhat in the position of, you know, we hear the side of the homeowner, we hear the side of the contractor, but we haven't necessarily had them both in the same room, really, to verify stories. So, you know, I will say that, and you're kind of in the position of one party and the other party
Yes.
saying different things.
Other comments from the board?
Yes, I did.
You have more?
Mhm.
Yeah, Trustee Dunham?
Trustee Connolly alluded to legal assistance, and that is an avenue that you certainly, you know, it's a civil, it'll be a civil remedy that you'll need, but if you've paid for this work, and I assume you have, then the contractor owes it to you to make it correct. And I don't, I'm sorry, I don't buy the explanation that, well, the contractor must have come and taken care of it, because obviously he didn't. So if your remedy, your remedy, I think, would be a civil matter, and one of the services that Trustee Connolly alluded to can probably help you. But just because the thing was done without our knowledge and the village's knowledge and permission and so forth, that doesn't mean we have to okay it and allow it to stay. So I'm sorry.
Trustee Bishke?
I would like to include, if we do approve and agree with staff's recommendation on the request, that there be a time frame when the fence has to be brought into compliance one way or another, either to be conforming or, as Trustee Connolly said, just to be removed. Because, you know, we can say that we're not going to approve it, but if the petitioner doesn't do anything about it and it sits for 2 and 3 years, it's just going to be something that continues on. So I would actually like to add one condition, that there be a reasonable time, and I don't know what a reasonable time is, 6 months or so, to bring, you know, the revised plans, to apply and to receive the permit, and to actually complete the work, so that this gets taken care of and we don't have to worry about it 3 years from now.
Other comments, questions? So I'm going to recap a little bit. So you had applied for the permit, and as you're aware, the village was not approving of the original plans, which is what's been built. That having been said, now that it's actually built, and it's been, in effect, caught, the village is not unsympathetic. And staff has done, I think, a good job in trying to be helpful in saying, look, we're not going to make you take the whole thing down and redo it all. They have presented an alternative that I think is reasonable, and I think you've heard, generally speaking, is reasonable. And it's something that is probably about the best that can be made out of this situation. Nobody's happy with it. We prefer it be brought into fully into compliance, but again, being reasonable and sympathetic on it, is willing to allow something. So it's up to the board whether or not the rest of everyone is willing to go along with that. There is a compliance time frame. I didn't see it in the minutes anywhere saying when this would have to be brought into compliance. So
Typically, the way that works is if someone's applied for a variance, during the time the application is pending, they're considered in compliance and no enforcement action is taken. At the time that it's denied, or a part of it is denied, typically it's a staff matter to follow up and ask if there are plans to apply for a permit, and if things aren't happening to the satisfaction of staff, enforcement staff, they would issue a citation to the homeowner for having a non-compliant fence.
Okay.
My understanding is there's already been citations issued, right? And that there's been no presence at the adjudication hearings?
Right, so right now, the homeowner did not appear at the hearing and was served. A default judgment was entered against her, the amount of, what, $400, Julie, as I recall?
400 plus
Plus
court
costs.
fees, yeah.
The contractor, who staff felt was more at fault, was issued an initial citation, didn't show up, but did call the day of the court hearing and said they were going to fix it. So we took a rather modest judgment that first time, thinking they might follow up. We might even vacate it if they came in to vacate that judgment. They not only didn't come in to vacate it, they never followed up. So we reissued a citation and had issued a fine that, combined with the original one, we thought was fair for what they did, which was about $4,600 plus court costs. And so that's being sent to collection because they haven't paid it, and they're putting a hold on any further work by that contractor in the village. So that's where it stands, but.
And has the homeowner paid the fine?
No.
No.
But the point I was making is, but during this time, since the variation was applied for, no further enforcement action was taken, because it's been in process.
Well-
But at some point, that's how we would normally follow up.
Seeing we're headed into the dead of winter, all right, so there's not much gonna be done, anything with the dead of winter where we're at right now. So would it be out of line to say July 1st, to put a date as July 1st to become in compliance?
Well, I mean, this board has that authority to put its own time frame, but staff would also, they exercise discretion in enforcement, and they take those kinds of considerations into effect all the time.
Okay.
So it depends on how you want to do it, really.
Yeah, the thought was that staff could exercise some discretion based on the outcome of this, but as Lance has said, that if we had a firm deadline included in the ordinance, then we would abide by that.
That would be my preference.
So if we approve the variance as outlined by staff and presented us by the committee, and we said they have to do this by July 1st, if nothing happened by July 1st, then we would go back into the process of
Correct.
taking them to court.
Typically, we would issue an administrative adjudication citation. If we got no response and no compliance, eventually, we would have to take an action to get a court order to have a contractor remove the fence ourselves.
And then put a lien against the house.
Correct.
For that work.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the judgment that's out there will have to be paid when it's sold, if not before, too, because it's a hold on the sale.
Just as a point of clarification, it was brought up, there is kind of the standard language about these approvals only being good for a year if a permit isn't issued. The way I interpreted that is that's just kind of a standard comment, but I don't know if you want to look at that, Lance, and tell us if that needs to be amended, because that does have a one-year time frame for.
This first item here. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a kind of boilerplate.
Yeah, I read that too. I was unsure as to
That's,
what that
yeah,
meant.
that's put in
Yeah, it's
everything.
kind of like standard language taken from somewhere else, I think.
It's
Yeah,
included
that
in
would-
standard in the
Yeah, that-
variations.
We would want to get rid of that in any action the board would approve. I mean, it seems like, and it depends when you say it has to be done by July 1st. I think what we mean, I think what you're thinking you mean is the work completed, not permit applied for. And by having work completed, that would actually shorten the period to do the work, because normally when you pull a permit, you have a year to do the work, which I don't think the board has in mind. So we would need to clarify that the fence is to be brought physically into compliance by whatever date you pick.
Okay.
Further questions from the board? So petitioner, have anything else you want to add? No. Okay. What's the direction from the board? Sounds, I'm going to try and recap again. It sounds to me like the general consensus is, again, the board being, not being unsympathetic, is willing to go along with some of the recommendation from the staff to allow you to keep some of the fence as is, but the rest of it has to come into compliance, if I understand correctly, so.
And with the comments that council has made on what the normal process is for pulling permits and things, I'm fine with not actually putting a hard date in there, but this is something that has to be addressed, and it has to be taken care of one way or another. So a permit will have to be applied for, and you know, it's, my concern is the typical language and so forth when we approve a project is for a project that the petitioner wants to move forward with. In this case, the petitioner doesn't want to move forward with. So if we, you know, if we don't put some boundaries around it, you know, I'm concerned that it won't get.
That's why we need the hard date.
Yeah, so, but is July 1st to have the work completed by July 1st? Or do we say we have to have a permit pulled in the next 3 months?
I think the intent was to have it completed by July 1st.
Okay, then that's fine.
Trustee Madej?
Yeah, my understanding is if we go along with the staff's recommendation, there's no new permit required, right? They
There
just
is a
need to
permit
come back
required.
out and make the adjustments by removing 1/3 of the boards and cutting down.
They would need a permit. But they could, they could apply for a new permit, or they could amend the existing permit. If she uses a new contractor, we'd probably apply for a new permit. But I think that Lance could probably draft something that covered us either way.
Is there an existing permit, though?
They don't have, no,
No.
Well, it's been denied, but it's still.
could be amended. The
We could
application
amend
could
the
be amended.
application, correct.
Because the permit was from the petitioner and not from the contractor. Yes, okay. All right, further questions, comments?
I guess just the
Yes.
only one other question, as long as this contractor is in arrears, he's not allowed to do work in town, correct?
Right, we've already put a hold on the license. The contractor would not be able to do any new work. No permit that had this contractor on the permit application would be approved without the fine being paid, and whatever else staff decides they need to do. And they also, the judgment is being sent to collection.
Is the contractor aware of that?
Thank you.
I don't know,
Notified that they can't work in the village because of this?
I don't believe that they have received that notification yet.
Yes, they should be.
Further questions, comments?
I would move that we agree with staff's recommendation and also further require that the fence be brought into compliance by July 1st, 2020.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Further comments? Will the clerk please pull the board?
We're going to need
Yes.
to do one more motion, but this
Yes.
is fine.
That's fine.
Trustee Bischke.
Aye.
Trustee Madey.
Aye.
Trustee Dunham.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Trustee Conley.
Aye.
Trustee Kozak.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Are you referring to the ordinance?
Yes, so
Okay.
that was, so now you've acted
Right.
on the Plan Commission's recommendation, and now consistent with that, it would be appropriate at this point for there to be a motion to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 19-094, granting a fence variation at 1601 Portsmouth Lane, with the draft ordinance being modified. It will stand as is, with the exception that language will be added to it that the fence portions on the north side of the property facing Portsmouth Lane, those two fence portions, shall be brought into compliance with the village code no later than July 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the ordinance as Lance has indicated. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please pull the board?
Trustee Bischke.
Aye.
Trustee Madey.
Aye.
Trustee Dunham.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Trustee Conley.
Aye.
Trustee Kozak.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. So just to make sure you understand, the village board did agree with staff, so they're granting you some variation, but the rest needs to be brought into compliance by July 1st of next year. So you have time, whether it works through with the contractor to get the contractor out to bring it into compliance, or whether you get someone else. Either way, it needs to be done by July 1st.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yes.
I assumed that the contractor would have to pay his fine before he can work on,
She can use any contractor for the...
yeah, okay,
Well,
but if
yeah.
she chooses to use the existing contractor, they would have to pay the fine prior to
Being given,
being given, doing the work.
correct.
Okay, that should be stipulated somewhere.
Well, it is, because that's how they, when the contractors come in, they check to see if there are any
Yeah, I
black
think-
marks, judgments.
Yes, but this contractor's done work without village permits, so I think George's point is well taken. So, okay, is that clear? Okay.
So this contractor is not able to,
They are, if they
Do
approach the
correction.
village, they have a fine pending by the village, and they need to at least have conversation with the village regarding that fine before they can do any further work in this village. So even if they're willing to come in and make this correct, make this right, they still at least have to have that conversation with the village first. Okay? Okay. Thank you. That being the only item under committee reports, we'll move on to comments from the audience. If anyone in the audience would like to approach the village and discuss any items pertinent towards the village of Schaumburg, please do so now. Okay. Next item is council report.
Thank you. The only thing I have is to announce that we do need to go into closed session at the end of our regular business. So I'll be asking for a motion to do that. And for members of the public, we will be, depending on how the closed session goes, we do anticipate coming back out into open session to take action as is set forth at the end of the agenda. That's
We
all I
also release of executive session minutes, there being none.
Oh, correct, and we also need a motion at this time. We've done the semi-annual review of closed session minutes, and the motion should be, on our recommendation, that no meeting minutes be authorized for release at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, and this is something we do every 6 months?
Correct.
Right, thank you. Motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No. Motion carries. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay,
Thank you for the
President's
reminder.
report. I just have 2 items to mention. I attended an American Indian Heritage event today at Trickster Gallery, It was kind of sparsely attended, but very good. And one of the things talked about there was apparently the Smithsonian Institute is going to be setting up a whole event, a show in one of the galleries they have regarding Black Hawk tribe and that, and the way it was described by Joe was very interesting. So I'm sure he'll follow up and let us know when that happens and get an opportunity to take a peek at it. Would be pretty cool. They're doing some remodeling for that. I did see a permit on the window, so that's a plus. He also mentioned on November 18th, one of the last 4 code talkers from World War II will be at the Trickster Gallery. I'm sorry I don't have the time, but I'm sure you can find it on their website or get it from someone on staff. That's all I have. Manager's report.
I just have 2 quick items I want to mention this evening. First, I want to extend my congratulations to the members of the village staff who worked on the new bike bridge over Roselle Road. It's a great asset, and as I said to some of the elected officials last week, it's not often we cut a ribbon on a $4 million piece of infrastructure. So a great amenity for the community, and my thanks to all the staff that were involved in that project. Second, I just want to commend the folks at the Engineering and Public Works Department. Obviously, winter is here in full force. They made some great preparations over the past couple of weeks and had a nice celebration at Public Works on Friday to really get everyone pepped up about the winter. It's hard to do. It's when it's this cold and this snowy this early in the season, but congratulations, Mike, to you and your staff, and good luck this winter.
Thank you. New business. Any items for new business? Any unfinished business? Trustee comments and mentions? Trustee Dunham.
I don't see Jack Netter here, but congratulations to the Prairie Center for having had the foresight to invite.
There he is. He's hiding over there.
Oh, you're hiding back there. Okay.
Yeah.
Weinberg, the former percussionist for the Tonight Show, I believe it was, and also percussionist for the E Street Band, came and put on just one heck of a show, and he did it wounded. He came out with one of his arms in a sling, and he had another drummer there, but he and the band that he had were fantastic. This guy can do better with one arm than most drummers can do with 2. And a good time was had by everybody who was there. People were dancing in the aisles and in the apron in front of the stage. And if you all were thinking about that and didn't go, shame on you, because it was a very, very good event.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I mentioned it at the beginning. I'm going to mention it again. Happy birthday to Trustee Madej.
Thank you.
So it is today, right?
It is.
Yes, okay.
29.
We won't embarrass you by singing happy birthday. I always hated that myself. Executive session. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with Section 2, Sub C, 5 of the Open Meetings Act, land acquisition for the purchase of or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. And item 2, in accordance with Section 2, Sub C, 6 of the Open Meetings Act, sale or lease of village property, the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body, and we probably will come back.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Oh, yes?
Trustee Dunham.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You good?
My fault, I spoke
Okay.
too soon.
Nope, that's all right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Bishke.
Aye.
Trustee Madej.
Aye.
Trustee Dunham.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan. Trustee Conley. Trustee Kozak.
Thank you. We are adjourned to executive session. D2.